Yeah. No.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Welcome our viewers back after all the sports and everything else.
Yes, the sports, Bridget. Manchester United. I know you are a fan, and then one of my best friends is for Liverpool, so I know the coach is Klopp. That's all I know. And you were walloped.
Indeed.
Terrible.
I have nothing to say. I don't even have an excuse.
Yes.
I was very depressed.
7.
Yes.
Terrible.
When it got to 5, I thought that was the end.
Yes.
And I saw us sloppy defense. The 6th went in, and the 7th.
So sorry.
7-0.
No, I mean
that's the hard part.
history.
At least if we had, taken one back or two. 7-0.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm still.
You're still Manchester.
Forever,
Please
Man
change.
U.
Anyway. So
it's International Women's Day.
yes.
We have all these wonderful women about to join us. Rosie Finn, another Wesley Girls girl, Vera Fiado. I believe I've met Vera before. And Enyona Manye and Faustina Copson. We will say more about them when they join us.
Yes, really exciting.
How do you feel about International Women's Day in NLA?
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm happy that over the years, we in Ghana are recognizing commemoration of International Women's Day. So commemoration has increased, and a lot of awareness has been created. And I'm hoping that we, across the country, we use the opportunity of commemorating International Women's Day to reflect on how far we have come in terms of progress, women's rights, and also to reflect on where we should go. And so I'm happy that the theme today is on going digital and how we can use the digital age to optimize or to enhance protection of women's rights. So as I sit here, I'm thinking about ways and means we can be innovative, how we can use the digital age to but at the same time, looking at the downsides too of how child pornography, because of the digital age, child pornography has increased, and how young girls are being exploited, and how still as a country we don't have safeguards for children accessing pornographic material, and how it has become an addiction, and basically what we're doing about that. So I'm looking at both ends of the stick.
Another theme actually for the International Women's Day, which we used for our event on the weekend, is time for audacious action. Time for audacious action. So I feel, since Beijing and with all this awareness of women and our importance and the role we play and the spaces we can take, we are talking it up a lot, but we are not acting, we're not taking that step, we're not speaking up. And today's theme, or this year's theme, is asking us to get up and get out there and take action. I was speaking on another International Women's Day event yesterday, put together by another old girl, Gifty Bachi Freeman.
Oh, okay.
And she brought on Zoom, she was from in the UK,
yeah. Okay.
And she brought on Zoom 3 of us, me from Ghana, another woman from Canada, and another woman from Belgium. And we were all talking about how it's time now to take up spaces. In certain jurisdictions, yes, women have made strides. We have made some, but have we made enough? And it is time now for us to take, and what I said was, when it pinches you,
yes,
you will speak, or you will shout. But sometimes it pinches us secondarily through someone else. Yes. And we must be the voices to speak out for those people.
An audacious act like the hair revolution. I mean, like, you know, the women in, is it Iran? Also, like, you know, we've had this this lady who was murdered.
Yes.
I mean, or she died in custody. Yes. And the whole revolution that came, and it became even global. Yes. Where we had women in other countries across the world speaking up. Speaking up against what was happening in that country. So that was really an audacious act where, I mean, you know how hair is precious. Yes. And how women just cut their hair. And also the hijab debate, you know, whether or not.
Let me take you on a very interesting but controversial one. I don't know if you knew about Kenya. Well, when after their elections, there was conflict. Yes. And some of the women decided they were going to go on, deny their husbands sex.
Oh, wow.
And they actually denied their husbands or their partners sex for a while and said to them, go and resolve the conflict or else. And I heard it fleetingly then. But I went online and I actually read about it, and it was true. And it wasn't the first time that had been done. And therefore, we have power. We have the power. And I use the word power advisedly because universally and to most men, you must exercise power. But for us women, we exercise leadership. Rather than just, you know,
we exercise power. It's good to exercise power.
Yes, but we have soft power. Yes, and that soft power is strong enough to make a statement in many ways. And like I said earlier, we must be able to put value on that power to say, this woman is powerful in this manner. When I take my mother, for example, she ran our home. Yes. My mother was not half as educated as I was, but she was powerful in her small, quiet way, you know. And we all, as women, wherever you find yourself, must exercise that positive power, positively, in order to impact somebody's life also positively.
Yes, it's very, very important. However uncomfortable it may seem, we need to step up. We need to step it up and exercise that power for the public good. Yes. For the public good. And we need to get into those spaces and then act so that we can get a better Ghana. It's as simple as that. Like you said, I can, like my mother, same example, and my grandmothers, both my maternal and my paternal grandmother. I think I get the politics bit from my paternal grandmother, who was a CPP women's organizer. And it just sort of, you reflect on these lives of these matriarchs who have gone before us. And you don't have a choice but to step up. We need to step up and act and save Ghana.
I think that, you know, women's power is expressed best when you know that something dear to you is at stake. You know, the mother bear kind of, you know, where you know that if it is affecting something dear to me, and for us, the dearest thing to us are our children.
And our families.
Yes. Yes. And our children make up Ghanaians. Yes. And therefore, look at all Ghanaians and see them as your children. And take up that space to speak for them. Yes. Because honestly, where we are right now is difficult, it's dangerous. Yes. And Ghanaian youth, children, infants, everybody is suffering. And this is where women, I have a lot of admiration for, and I always use her as an example, for the MP from Akwetia, I think, ex-MP, was it Akwetia or Boase? Adjoase, Amase,
yes, yes.
The hairdresser.
Yes.
who, regardless of where she was coming from as a hairdresser, she made it into parliament.
Yes.
And because her people saw her as a leader.
Yes.
Unfortunately, she didn't make it this time, and we all saw what became of that seat. But it's amazing that we seem to limit ourselves or box ourselves in to say, because I may not be educated, or because I'm only this or only that, I may not be able to be the leader that I am. But you are being called to take up that space, and let us all take it. It's International Women's Day. Some people say, why don't we celebrate International Men's Day? There is actually International Men's Day. Sadly, it's also International, I would not say, go and Google it.
I'll Google it.
Yes. But we have celebrated men a lot and enough, and elevated them into places of power and leadership. And I think in this country they failed us. I will say it's
they have failed us.
In this country, yes, they have failed us.
And Bridget, today is a call to action for every single woman in Ghana. Let's look at what happened in Nigeria. And we saw the videos of the women in Nigeria stepping up prior to the elections. Enough is enough. Positioning themselves in front of the army, the police, and what have you, standing up for their country. And today, International Women's Day, we are asking all Ghanaian women, every woman living in Ghana, step it up, we are calling to action. Our country is in shambles. We are the lowest point. Let's step it up for our future generations. Women of Ghana, let's step it up for our country as nurturing, nourishing women. We step it up today. Call to action.
Okay, so our guests are with us now, Nana, and would like to introduce them. First on the list, another Wesley Girls. Wesley Girls, we need to take this country over.
Wesley Girls, we will take this country over.
So the first is Rosie Finn. Hello, Rosie, Country Director of MasterCard Foundation. Hi, Rosie, good to see you. They say we look alike.
You know we are twins, almost. Even my own mother says it, so it must be true.
Yes, they used to say your sister Marianne looked like me as well. So, was and Vera. Is that Vera with us, Vera Fiado?
Yeah.
Associate Professor of Finance.
Yeah.
Woo! Wow. University of Ghana Business School. Welcome.
Thank you.
We will start with the two of you, and I believe the others will join us later. Rosie and Vera, you've been listening in on our conversation since we started. We've been talking about the state of the nation, both the real state of the nation and what the president is going to tell us today. Not to say it's not the real state, but we will hear. Also, we've talked about the chaos in Ashama, to put it mildly. And we've also talked about lack of vaccines for our infants. And of course, it is International Women's Day, so happy International Women's Day to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What does it mean to you? We are talking about digital, using digital technology for the advancement and development of women for gender equality. What does it mean to you?
Well, I'm happy to start, and good morning to you in the studio. Good morning to all of the listeners tuning in this morning. Another International Women's Day. It's exciting, right? If you remember, we've been celebrating International Women's Day for 110 years. Here we are today as well. The theme is a very relevant one, digital. As the world moves more online, it's important to ensure that the gap when it comes to digital usage closes between men and women. And I think that's what we are trying to celebrate today, and actually understand the underlying issues that's preventing that from being the case, because there is a distinct difference between the number of women who are online and the number of men, and for a lot of different reasons. But for me, as we celebrate today, you know, even though it's exciting, even though we want to continue to push this agenda, I think
I
we've got
believe somebody
Gipsy
is on.
joining.
If you could mute. Go
I
on,
think she just
Rosie.
muted. Sure. So even though, you know, this is something that's exciting, I mean, I think one of the things that continues to bother me about all of the celebrations is the fact that I don't believe we're closing the gap quickly enough, right? With gender parity as a whole, with gender parity in digital specifically, which is what the specific theme for this year is. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation where we hopefully begin to think about some specific actions and activities that on an individual level, on a community level, on the national level, we can start to put in place and track over time to really start to make significant progress in this space. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Vera, what about you? What would you like to see?
When it comes to the digital, as we have it as the theme for today, I think it's timely in the sense that over the years, women in general, even as we celebrate International Women's Day, part of it has been to try to, should I say, bridge the gap between the men and the women. And as Rosie rightly said, it's not being closed fast enough. But I think the digital divide, which is slowly closing, because when it comes to the digital side, for example, phones especially have begun to play a key role. If you take it, even when you move into financial inclusion, for example, when you look at the data on how, and you know, part of women empowerment is to start with the financial aspect, empowering them financially, having bank accounts, being able to access financial services, and therefore improve their lot. The digital aspect of it is now something that we can definitely employ. So with financial inclusion, the expansion of the fintech space, etc., I think this theme is quite timely, and then hopefully we should be able to leverage it. Like Rosie said, all of us up in arms together, we work for the good of all.
Thank you very much, Vera. I like the way you brought in the finance part of it, being digitally empowered. Nanoye, what do you think? What do you think? Would you like to hear from Rosie and?
Yes. Welcome very much. Yeah. Thank you. Happy International Women's Day, Rosie and Vera. I'd like us to also to celebrate you this morning. I mean, Associate Professor of Finance. That's a lot of mathematics. And other stuff. So congratulations to you, and also to Rosie. So I'd like to find out what motivated you to select finance, Vera, and also Rosie. How is I know MasterCard Foundation is doing a lot for girls, I mean, for women, and that's very, very remarkable. So I'd like to also find out what motivated you to also join MasterCard, and how is it going as far as your profession or your career is concerned. Thank you.
So what motivated me to take up finance?
Yes.
It's actually a very interesting and long story. I got to the university. At that time, I was actually a language student.
Oh.
So asking career-wise, but I loved my mathematics. So despite being a language, you know, I'd gone to the school first to want to do science. Then apparently, I think I had an interview. I didn't know BEC. They never gave how do I call it, extra paper. So I did my work, I spaced it out, and I was just halfway through the paper. I had plenty of time, and then I ran out of paper to write on.
Wow.
And then I was waiting for close to an hour. Paper was never brought, and I was never told that so when the paper came, everything was excellent, except the science paper, I clocked 2. So I got to hold each other, they said, you're good, but with a 2 in science, the general science, they were not too sure they want to risk me in the science class. So they offered me instead to do languages. So yes, I loved my French. I still aced it. I went for competitions. But I got to the university and I asked, what can I do with it? I guess today, like I always say, if somebody had advised me, I may have actually still been a professor of French or something. But all they said was I could be a translator. It didn't really add up. So I switched into admin. And then I like to play around with figures, but not just follow the rules. So accounting, though more mathematics, also with a math and opportunity, it didn't really, should I say, pull the heartstrings that I had. So I looked for a field that combined a bit of the accounting, but more of a chance to play with my figures. And so that's how I ended up in finance, interestingly. So that's my journey into this.
You sound like an all-rounder because
Yes.
French, science, finance, well done. These are the women who need to take up the spaces. And I know that University of Ghana, for example, is doing a fantastic job putting women in leadership, and they must be celebrated.
Yes.
Yes. We've also been joined by Enyonam Manye. And please, Manye.
Manye.
Manye. Okay. Founder, Count on Crops Hub. Count on Crops Hub. And she's the host of the Ghanaian Farmer, a woman farmer. Remarkable. Indeed, why not? Because I think women make up almost 2/3 of our
food crop farms.
Food crop farms, agric. And yet, then again, we are not being celebrated enough, or we are not making that, showing forth that worth of women in our country. So welcome, Enyonam, and happy International Women's Day. Oh dear, we lost her, so we'll go back to her. Rosie and Vera, whilst you're there, also another theme, apart from the digital, is the time for audacious action. I heard you, Rosie, say that you don't think we've made enough strides towards women being recognized or being up there in leadership. So the theme is time for audacious action. And to you, what would that audacious action be?
Wow, no, that's a very good question. I think there are really a number of things that can be done, a number of initiatives that can be put in place, right? If we think about it from the corporate perspective, for example, I think there needs to be more intentionality around ensuring that you are bringing in more women into the corporate space. So, for example, I was speaking at a company yesterday, and one of the things they said was that when the HR department gets a short list of candidates for a role they're recruiting, and there is no female in that short list, they go back to the market and make sure that there's at least 1 or 2 qualified and competent females. What does that mean? It takes a little bit more time to recruit. It takes a little bit more effort, but then you're being intentional, because the answer is not that the women are not there or they're not available. It's just that a lot of the time when you open up roles, it will be the more aggressive and ambitious men that will apply. So you need to be a little bit more focused in finding capable women who can do the job. And I put a lot of emphasis on capable, because as we still seek for a world that is more equitable from a gender perspective, it needs to be done in a way where it is the competence of the women that is getting them there. So we're not taking any shortcuts. We're not asking for any handouts. We're not asking for favors. We're just saying that where there are qualified and competent women, let's make sure that we're finding them and putting them in those positions. Also, when it comes to promotions, right, getting women into senior leadership, it's very important that you make provisions for women to be able to take up those opportunities. And a lot of the time, one of the things you'll see is that if there's an open position, you will find men who maybe tick 3 or 4 of the boxes, who are confident and will apply. For women, statistics have shown that they want to be able to take 9 or 10 out of those competencies before they apply. This is where you put in structures in a corporation that encourages them, that pushes them, that mentors women and supports them in a way where they get that confidence to apply for roles that they might not have all of the boxes ticked, but they do have a lot of the competency that will enable them to thrive and be successful in those roles. So those are 2 examples from, say, a corporate setting. If we look at it from a national perspective, this is where you can start to put laws and rules in place. I refer to this example a lot because I think it's just such an amazing thing that's happened in Rwanda, where they put very specific targets on number of parliamentarians who should be women. And once they did that, they were able to surpass the target in a way where more than 50% of parliamentarians are women in Rwanda. But what did it take? A very specific, intentional effort and action to make this happen. And lastly, for me, when it comes to a lot of the conversations we are having around gender, I do believe that a lot of the training, a lot of the mindset change, the focus on women, it actually starts from the home, right? So as we are growing and grooming our young men and women, it is really helping them understand the role that women play, the strength of women, and the fact that we are 50% of the population, and holding women back is really holding the economy back. So getting everybody to understand that gender issues are issues of economics, are issues of social impact, are very important to ensure that everybody realizes you're not doing anybody a favor by saying that women need to have more parity, and that it is actually good for the economy, it's actually good for society. As they say, when you have women who go to pension, who have more disposable income, it doesn't just serve them, it serves them, their extended family, etc. And that happens more so than if you have men who have lots of disposable income when they go to pension. They use that more from a personal perspective, right? So, these are some of the things there are lots of things that I think we can start to be a little bit more intentional about. And I am hoping that we get to see a lot of these come into play.
Thank you, Rosie. I hope that in saying so, the women in Parliament today will push a little further for the affirmative action bill to be passed. It's long overdue, and I wonder why it's that way. We have Enyonam Manya with us now, founder of Count on Crops Hub and the host of the Ghanaian Farmer. Hello, Enyonam. Happy International Women's Day.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Thank you very much. Happy International Women's Day to you too.
Your voice...
Good morning, I'm well. Can you hear me, please?
We can hear you.
We can.
Right and clear. Now, do you have any questions?
Yes, and how are you doing? Hi. I can see you on the road. Yeah.
I'm very well, thank you.
Are you on the farm?
I'm going to the farm. That's what I do every day. So I'm heading to the Volta region now.
Okay. Which part of the Volta region is your farm?
I'm going to Ketu North.
All right. So what is Count on Crops Hub all about?
Thank you very much. Good morning to all your viewers and happy International Women's Day to everyone watching us and those in the studio, including the amazing, phenomenal women who are on the line discussing and sharing more on what women are doing. Count on Crops is a Greek advocacy agency, and we have
maybe do the video.
Sorry, Enyonam, I think the connection is a bit unstable, probably because of where you find yourself. We'll come back to you. We hope that we can get you loud and clear when we come back to you. So, Rosie, with what you were saying, reminded me of another quote which said, a woman must work twice as hard to be thought of as half as good as men. Luckily, that is not difficult. So, even though we are required to tick more boxes than them, and I think that sometimes we put that limit on ourselves. You know what as the saying goes, fools rush where angels fear to tread. Men are bolder to quickly say, yes, I'm competent and I'm capable and I can do it. But for example, listening to Vera and all the boxes she ticks, she was good in French, she was good in science, she's good in finance. And we are not willing to say, I am capable, I am. And there's another saying that says, if you don't say I am, who's going to say thou art, right? This is the time for audacious action. In what ways should we be able to say, I am? I mean, is Enyonam back with us? She's a farmer. Her voice sounds like someone who belongs in a choir, actually.
Yes, she has
a very sweet voice. And we must ask ourselves, what is preventing us from stepping up and being bold and taking audacious action?
Yes, so Manye, Enyonam, are you back? Can we hear Enyonam? I don't think so. So maybe we'll go
The connection is a bit of a challenge. It's delayed, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe if she turns the video off.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can get the voice. Because it's obvious she's on the road.
Yes.
So maybe that's what is informing that.
Yes, Rosie. Like I said, Rosie and Vera, you did say that the space must be made. I don't know whether it is we cannot say the men should make the space for us. We must take up those spaces. And what is it that is preventing us from doing that?
Well, I think simply put, it's a lack of probably confidence that has been sort of somehow inputted into us from a very early age, right? And so it starts by working on the mind at a very young age for kids. And even in the workplace, this is why I'm a big believer in mentorship. This is why I'm a big believer in really being able to take people under your wings and give them the support and structures to help them grow. But I've seen it, for me personally, and the family I grew up in, where I had a mom who instilled confidence in us at a very early age. And one of her favorite things was, if you're willing to put in if you're willing to put in the hard work, nothing is impossible. And it's been sort of like a guiding motto for me in everything that I've done. So the times when I'm not able to achieve something, I kind of feel it's not because I'm not capable. It's not because I'm not smart enough. It's probably more likely I didn't work hard or commit myself. And the times when I know I can stretch myself, 9 out of 10, I get, whatever it is that I am pursuing. And so that mindset was sort of inculcated in me at a very early age, and it's guided how I have approached life. And I think that's exactly the kinds of mindsets that a young woman needs to be inculcated with in schools, at home, and even in the workplace. So even much later in life, I think it is possible to get people to think and believe and feel like they can achieve. So for example, if I see a young lady who I believe is capable to do a particular role, but she's not applying, I will proactively ask her, why is it that this role is open? I see all of these people applying and not. And she'll say something like, there are a few boxes I don't tick. And I'll tell her what the boxes she does tick that are important and that are relevant to the role, and why she should still have that kind of confidence. So for me, really spending a lot of time mentoring young women, especially women in STEM, because that's where my background is. And just giving them that level of confidence is something I'm really passionate about, because I do think over time, we will grow up a lot of highly qualified, very confident young women who will be more willing and able and not scared of taking bigger roles and opportunities that come their way.
Great.
Yeah. I think
good.
I can add to that by saying, yes, indeed, it's time for some audacious moves. Audacious moves that move away from what has been the typical, the status quo as far as women are concerned and where we groom society-wise. So more often than not, we find the case where we always teach our daughters sort of to take the step back whenever there's a race. So unconsciously, we always ask them to doubt themselves first before they make a move. Now I think we've got to be a bit more bold and, like Rosie said, intentional, be it even the workplace, grooming. So when you see potential, for a lot of the men, actually, even in my field, when you find male colleagues join, somehow without even maybe looking out for it, you find another male senior, so like a professor or someone, who just takes this person under their wings. And then they could sometimes end up with 2, 3, 4 different mentors on different aspects. So they seem to rise faster. In the case of the women, sometimes it becomes a lone race. You run it alone, trying to sometimes juggle family, everything. And so at a certain point, you say something's got to give. And usually the preference has always been to give off the others in the quest for family. And of course, in speaking to the issue of we don't tick all the boxes, I remember some years ago, I kept on toying with the idea that I should add consulting to my portfolio. But every time I try to make the move, then everybody says, there's something more you need to add. There's something more. So I remember one student of mine who happened to be, I think, EY or KPMG, walked into my office sometimes and said, and then Dr. Viedo, why are you not in consulting? I don't see you out there. But when you're delivering in class, I think I really enjoy it, and I think you've got a lot to give. Like, oh, no, when they say consultants, it's a certain title. It comes with a certain weight. So I must check all. They said, Dr. Viado, please, there are plenty of people out there who are not a quarter of what I've seen you delivering in class. So please tell yourself that you've got everything it takes. You move out there and we will learn the rest as we go along. I think it's time somebody also just told somebody that, like Rosie is saying, you check a few of the boxes, move on and learn the rest along the way. We find our male counterparts sometimes not even checking the box. I mean, they don't check the box, none. But they're bold enough to just throw themselves into. So indeed, it is time for that audacious move where throw yourself out there, put out yourself and tell yourself, even if I haven't got it, I'm going to learn. Yes, you won't be arrogant when you don't really know it, but if you even self-aware that, I don't have all it takes, then you immediately start looking out for what will it take to ace it. And in that case, you work at perfecting those skills, and then definitely you're going to do a much, much more fantastic job at anything you put your hands to.
Thank you, thank you. I don't know if you read a story about the professor, the man who went to Oxford and was lecturing and passed himself off as a professor for a few months and was only recently found out and fired. I mean, it takes some guts, and maybe we need some of those guts, but in a clean, positive way. Talking about digital and digitizing women, or women getting digitized, in what areas, Rosie, have you found that this is required, especially when working with a MasterCard Foundation and all the little projects that you support? Where do we need to grow some more digitally, particularly for women?
Great, no, thank you. So at the MasterCard Foundation, what our goal and our vision is really one, to create a world where everybody has the opportunity to learn and prosper. And by 2030, we've got this big and audacious goal that we want to create 30 million jobs, and jobs we are calling dignified and fulfilling. And we want 70% of those jobs to go towards women. In Ghana, the target is 3 million jobs that we plan on creating, 3 million dignified and fulfilling jobs. And that means about 2.1 million of those jobs will go towards women. One of the things that we've realized for sure is that there will need to be a very strong digitally focused plan for us to be able to help these women find the jobs. And so there's a number of areas and there's a number of places where we think strength needs to come in. So if we're thinking about a lot of the entrepreneurs and the SMEs that are women-led, because we know that Ghana, for example, has one of the highest percentages of female entrepreneurs in the world. One is helping them to actually find ways of digitalizing their businesses to make them more efficient. So in terms of how they sell, that's one big aspect, right? You'll find a lot of these businesses that don't have an online presence, for example. That's something that we like to support and help them with. In terms of how they manage their business on an ongoing basis. So their ability to do their accounting, the ability to market, all of those things, do procurement, the ability to do their stock management. A lot of the time for women enterprises, you'll find that these are all being done in a very manual way, and lots of profits lost actually because they can't really keep track of what's going on. And so a lot of the programs we do are also centered around providing capacity building and strengthening the digital skills of young women to enable them be more efficient in the space. The other thing we're also really looking at and being more focused on is just the realization that, look, I think there's a statistic that says that by 2050, 63% of jobs that will exist in the world will be digitally focused, right? And today we have a situation where we don't have enough women coming out of schools that have the required technical or digital skills. So we're really looking at curriculum, right? Looking at working with the relevant entities to strengthen curriculum and make digital education, ICT, etc., a core part of education, especially for women. So these are two examples of areas where we are doing programs that will help support women. A big focus for us at the foundation is also the understanding that a lot of these jobs will be created in the agriculture space. And so it's really exciting to hear that Enyonam is out on the field, about to go onto her farm, because she's exactly the kind of entrepreneur, right, that we want to work with and see opportunities for helping her scale her business. Now, a lot of these farmers that we're working with are sort of kept in very small scale farming, right? And we are now looking and thinking through, how do we take these small scale farmers, work with them to help them grow their footprint, but also move away from just the primary production piece and see if there's opportunities for more agro processing and improving or growing in the value chain of agriculture, so that you're not just creating the foods or the shea, but you're actually processing it. And then a part of the job we'll be doing is looking for market opportunities for them. And a lot of this has a huge digital underlying factor as well, that we're focusing on and helping strengthen the skills of the women in that space. So I think it's really exciting times for the work that we're doing, and it's very relevant in ensuring that we really begin to close gender parity. And it's one of the things we like to do is really engage with a lot of the people we're working with, the young people, to really understand the areas where we can support and where we can bring in our expertise. A big factor is financing. I think Vera mentioned that. That there's a huge gap in women being able to access financing for the work that they do. And that's a big area that we're focused on helping close. So we're doing a number of programs that we're planning on putting in place, focus more on women. So hoping to reach a lot more women, but programs that will make financing affordable for women in the agri space and other adjacent sectors. Today, if you try and go to the market for a loan, you'll be hard-pressed to find a loan that's below 30%. Our thinking is, can we work with some of the financial institutions to actually develop loan packages for this target group of women that will be around, the 10%, 8% region? That makes it more sustainable and makes it possible for these women to be able to pay back and not go bankrupt just because they've taken a loan, right? So these are some of the initiatives that we're working on, and we know that to be able to reach a lot of women in far removed places, in remote areas, part of the way of doing that will be to take a digital approach. So these are a couple of examples in terms of where digital comes in, why it's so important, where the gaps are, and some of the things that the Mastercard Foundation is doing to close the gap.
Yes,
thank you, Rosie.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Rosie. That's amazing, and we'll be coming to you for assistance. I'm really excited about the loan packages that you're thinking of for women that will offer interest of 10% and below. That will be very welcome for women in Ghana. Vera, I would like to ask you about your experience in your industry or your career, and some of the fears that you have had in pursuing your career, and how today's theme on International Women's Day, the need for digitized technology, how this provides an opportunity to allay some of your fears in your career.
So I think, when it comes to being able to aspire to the highest level wants to, part of it, aside from being ratified or being affirmed into a position, is to be able to deliver excellently, and that has to do with capacity. So in my experience, and also I think it covers a lot. I was doing some study actually trying to understand the time dynamics of men and women. And then in one particular paper I picked up, it speaks to the fact that when men marry, they get to offload some of the standard, should I say, assignments, washing for themselves, sometimes cooking for themselves. They pass it on to their spouses. So what you find is that a married man, for example, gets to be able to add on more value to themselves as the years go by, and then they're able to develop the skills. Whereas for the females, it becomes a case of being at home to take care of the children. I think in recent times, we are seeing more, and I'm hoping we're going to even see greater strides in that area, where we are using the digital device now to bring education and forms of capacity building to the women, even as they find themselves sometimes at home because they've got to also raise family. And I like to say that raising a family is a very crucial economic activity. It's actually adding to the human capital base of any nation. Without the human capital, we're going nowhere anyway. So in this case, for me, sometimes when I've got to do a rush, like today, I've got to see my children to school, etc. The opportunity to be able to engage using a digital platform allows me to also leverage my skills on another platform without necessarily having to forgo this opportunity to engage with, the likes of Rosie, etc. Because then by the time I'm done with, for example, getting my children ready for school, the time is not possible to make it to the studio. So I think in that regard, I think University of Ghana also is making strides, and I know other universities are also making strides, how to ensure that we can bring education, skills, whatever, to the doorstep of the marginalized, also because for women in particular, they don't get a chance sometimes to move out of the home. So you could still raise your family at home, but when the baby is asleep, you could actually log in and build capacity and be able to leverage that skill to grow a business, to expand the portfolio of skills, etc., and become a more valuable entity. And I think even on that divide, these days we are leveraging that even within the space of telemedicine, etc. So you may not be immediately close to a medical person, but by virtue of that digital platform, you can actually access medical care that would otherwise not be available to persons. So I think this digital aspect is something that has a host of opportunities. I think we shouldn't let go. More often than not, we scratch the surface and then we move on. But I think this is something that is critical if we're going to try to bridge the gap. These are the opportunities, because we may not find the chance where the women can also, I make a joke that if we're going to the office and my son falls sick, spikes the temperature, it is an unspoken code that typically daddy would go and I'll stay behind. But should staying behind mean I get left behind? No. And I think this is where the digital landscape offers a myriad of opportunities for us to still, as much as you can't have it all, but have most of it, if not all of it. Yes, I think that's something that happens.
That's good.
Thank you, Vera. I like the way you've woven it into our everyday lives. Yeah. I was in a workshop recently and I learned the term reproductive burden. Reproductive burden is not just bearing the child, but actually bringing them up. And that burden then draws you back on other things. And I think that we will see the worth of that or the value of that if we are actually able to put money to it. Yes. And I say to people, for example, the example you gave with doing your partner's, your husband's laundry. If you actually got him to take the laundry to a laundromat or a laundry to be washed, the value of that effort you put in washing his clothes is how much he will pay to get those things washed. But we don't normally, like you said, it's a given. It's a given that you will play that role, and therefore you play it, and we don't even put value to it. The time that you lose having to take the children to the hospital or dropping them off school so that you miss out on something that would be an income earner for you, that also is the value, is your worth. And we must I'm not saying you must stop it, you can't stop it, but that gives you an idea of what you are worth.
Yes, and I'll come in here.
Yes.
I mean, it's very important, and I think one of the positive impacts, I mean, like the positive fallouts of COVID was, I mean, being able to work from home and using the digital, the tech, I mean, like the Zoom and whatever. So working virtual. So working virtual has come to stay, and it's going to help, especially we women. So once the son falls ill and you have to stay at home, at least you can work virtual. Even at the hospital, you can work virtual. And for me, that's one of the good things for COVID that, that happened. And I believe we need to optimize. I mean, we need to really scale that up so that more women can work virtual, and then so they will be able to share some time with their family, or play that reproductive burden role.
And I'm sure Rosie will agree with us with working virtual. I know MasterCard well.
Yes, yes.
So
I am working virtually right now.
Yes, I'm sure you are, and so are all the other people I know who work with you, or most of them. Yeah. Now, we would like to speak about the State of the Nation's address a little bit. What your views are on it, what your views are on the State of the Nation as we speak, and what you're expecting from the President, and any other views you may have on the State of the Nation. So, Vera, would you like to start us off with that?
Yeah, okay. So, State of the Nation, it's been a very turbulent season in the past few months, if you ask me. I think a lot of things seem to have gone a bit awry for us as a nation. And I think if you look at it critically, you find that it's as if everybody is somehow resigned that if we don't take care, we're going to crash. Also because, we started first with the cleanup of the financial sector, which was to then get the financial sector to be in a very robust state and therefore contribute its quota to growth. Because like we said, access to finance is key in terms of growth. Now, in a few months, let's say somewhere December, etc., then the issue of the debt exchange reared its head, and then we could talk of nothing except the debt exchange. And then we ask ourselves, how did we get here? And the simple answer is that we borrowed beyond our capacity. Now, what a lot of us sometimes don't understand, maybe both at the national level and at the corporate level, especially, you see that because I work more with small businesses, is the fact that debt has a propensity to magnify what is already in existence. So you see, when you're doing very well and your model is working fine, you may be making losses because you are not working at the right scale. So then you are not maximizing, getting the economies of scale that would make it profitable. But ordinarily, you're on a trajectory, just that you are not doing a sizable, framework to be able to get the benefits. So that when you decide to add on debt to be able to get to the scale that will then yield the profits, you are only magnifying the existing efficiency. And so in the existing situation is that of a problem, cracks, inefficiencies, what have you. When you take on debt, all you do is to magnify these existing problems or challenges as the case may be. And I think in our case, the debt scenario actually served to show that we got some very interesting issues with our economy, both from the access to credit perspective, government borrowing literally at 30% exit. Now, government that is supposed to be risk-free, I think at this point our treasury element is making that a bit shaky for us. But default risk-free, all things being equal, is offering 35%. Then add the risk premium to the private sector, and you should be asking a minimum of 40% on the cost of capital to grow a business. Now, if you're going to take that as your cost of capital, to grow the business, then it means that you need to make more than that minimum of 40%. It means you need to be making 50+% to pay up for other costs of doing business, because cost of capital alone is around what? 40%. Now that immediately minimizes the pool of available businesses and deals that we can get into. And whether we like it or not, the economy is a reflection of the businesses that and so whatever is being produced in the economy by our small businesses, by whatnot, together make up our industries, and together those industries make up the economy. So now when cost of capital and the whole terrain is inimical to the pursuit of productive business ventures, then what you see happening is that the economy is going to shrink, everything is going to shrink. And once the economy is shrinking, whatever monies the government has borrowed to be able to supposedly expand, because the underlying parameters are those of, lack of real productivity, inefficiency, we only serve to magnify it. And I think that in the long run, and with the debt exchange and everything, has also served to, how do I call it, sort of put some lack, there's a bit of, the confidence within the market has actually dropped to an all-time low. People now panic, and once they begin to lose trust also in the financial system, that is a recipe for disaster, because usually when there's trust in the financial system, then if I have excess money, I'll put it in the financial system, because the financial sector typically is the platform that will link those of us who may have excess funds but no real plans for them, with those of us as well who have good ideas, great ideas, but don't have the money. Usually the people with the ideas don't have the money. And then the people with the money sometimes don't have ideas per se that they would want to leverage on. One Indian professional I once met on a trip for advanced business management says, when your bank account is full, your brain somehow slows down and working. But when your bank account is empty, it works super fast, because then necessity is the mother of invention. So those who don't have the money sometimes get very wonderful ideas, and they'll need that money to now make it something that works for all. But with the current state of the economy and how the financial sector is panning out, I fear that if we don't take some serious steps quickly, and like Rosie said, to find ways and means of having access to capital with a realistic rate of return, all that can happen is that we're going to shrink and shrink and shrink. And so maybe we're hoping that when the president takes the podium to speak to us, we would hear something that will speak to allaying our fears, and more importantly, set the economy on the track to be able to have access to the requisite capital so we can grow our economy and then get everybody. Because once the economy begins to shrink, it is also going to throw a lot of people below the poverty line. And once they all fall below the poverty line, it drags everybody back, because then it's like an overloaded plane. When you've got too many dependents, you are not likely to be able to take off. So if we can set the parameters right and try to make sure that we minimize those who be falling into the poverty trap and the circles, then I believe that the potentials that we have as a nation, we should be able to tap into that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Vera. Rosie, what about you? What's your opinion on?
The professor has spoken, isn't it?
But
she's touched on a number of very, very, very key points. I mean, the little I have to add is this: look, we're currently sitting in a situation where the currency has declined dramatically, right? We've lost a lot of the cedi's value. Interest rates have soared. Prices are now of goods and services, of essential goods and services, are now skyrocketing. Just 3 days ago, I went and I was trying to do my regular pedicure, and the lady told me how much the price had gone up, and I said, you know what? Pedicure by force. And I went home quickly and I found a way to do it. And this is not even an essential service, but I just started to feel on a day-to-day basis how the current state of the economy is affecting everybody, right? So if there's unessential services that people can let go of, they're doing that. One of the things is that I think a lot of emphasis has been put on, the IMF deal, and my thoughts around it is, as important as that deal is, it's a one step in the process of fixing the economic situation, the economic dilemma that we're currently in as a country. And I am hoping that as part of the address, what we'll start to get is clearer timelines on finally having something in place with IMF. I think that's important. But beyond that, what are the steps? What are the actions? I think I saw somewhere that the presidency was saying that the economy will be fixed in 2 years. What exactly are the actions beyond IMF coming into place that we're going to take? And how are the citizens going to be taken along on this journey? Because one other aspect that I think is really important is that the activities are clearly communicated and everybody begins to feel that they understand the steps that are being taken. We are in a situation right now where as citizens, we are becoming active participants. We don't no longer want to be passive, because a lot of the things that are happening are affecting us directly, are affecting our pockets. A lot of people are taking their small CDs, changing to dollars, and if you can find a way to get it out of the country, people are doing that. For some of us, we know that's not going to be good for the economy and that's not going to be sustainable. But if we are going to work on the problem and solve it, we want to know what the plans are in a lot more detail. And it shouldn't be a sentiment where it feels like, don't worry, we're working on it and we'll let you know. I think at this point, members of society need to be included and be informed. So the communication needs to be a lot clearer. And since the State of the Nation address was actually rescheduled from, I think, an earlier period in February to today, and today marks International Women's Day, I am hoping that there will be some conversations or commitments towards policies that will help enhance progress for women and women's initiatives, and really push the agenda of women. And looking forward to hearing a bit more on that during the State of the Nation as well. So yeah, looking forward to hearing the president speak, and I'm really optimistic that it will begin to instill the confidence that, as Vera has mentioned, has really waned, not just local confidence or confidence of the local people in Ghana, but the international confidence in Ghana as well has waned. And today should hopefully be one of those steps that begins to rebuild confidence in our economy.
Okay, thank you. I agree with you,
Yes,
especially.
I totally agree with you.
Before the State of the Nation's address, or after, we need to hear from the women in Parliament as well. I'm on their case today.
Yes.
We need to hear from them, not only celebrating the day, but saying something of significance that will have an impact on our country and on the status of women, whilst the status of women, CSW is going on in New York. Something must be said about the status of women in Ghana today.
Affirmative action, the affirmative action bill, what is happening to that?
Yes.
Yes. Domestic violence, gender-based violence against women, we're seeing an increase. What is happening to that also? And then women who have lost their jobs, either due to the closure of the banks and also post-COVID. What is happening? So there's a lot in terms of what women are going through presently. And so it'll be really good, like you said, to hear from
and as
you
mentioned, the address itself must have something to say about women. We hope that the president, who was a gender
champion,
and he had actually an appointment in West Africa.
Yes.
We need to hear from him on the status of women.
Yes.
Maybe lastly, quickly, what do you both think about the mayhem in Ashama? Rosie, Vera, Ashama?
Yeah, I was just reading about it this morning. Just a very, very sad situation. I understand that I think it was over 100 people that have now been arrested. I am hoping we will be able to allow the situation to go through legal processes. A lot of the time when, as you mentioned, mayhem like this happens, people take a lot of situations into their own hands because there's a lot of being upset. There's a young man who was murdered, and it's easy to feel like the military or the police will want quick justice and to take situations into their own hands. So all I will say is just appealing that if people have been arrested, that they are, taken through the legal system. We have a strong legal system in Ghana. This is why it exists, and that people do not take the law into their own hands.
Yeah, what I can also add, I can say this is a culmination of a number of things, but this also speaks to the issue that maybe there are some elements within the fabric of our society that we want to take a second look at. I got snippets of the story, and I guess I was a bit worried because when it comes to these security agencies, despite everything, we also look to them as the ones to hold up the law and order, get the systems working. And so whilst you don't hold brief that other segments of the civilians can misbehave, you're also expecting that they would actually try to be above board. And so whenever they embroiled in such scenarios, it's a bit worrisome, because what it does is that depending on how the public perceives this whole thing, it can actually work to weaken their role in society. And for that matter, if we no longer trust them to be able to, or trust them to do what is right and to live by the very tenets of what makes for peace, order, etc., you find everybody wanting to take the law into their own hands, and that could be very dramatic. It's saddening and worrisome, because what it does that is that it makes it a bit you get a bit afraid as to what is happening. What if we've got our security agencies, and let's say yes, truly something like that has happened, can they trigger the right procedure to have the system work and pick up the miscreants? Because in the process of whatever, if they also take the law into their own hands, what they then do is to tell everybody, or to show everybody that when you are aggrieved, don't go through the system, do your own thing. And I don't think that is going to help us, because not everybody can do their own thing. But because sometimes someday, today you may be doing what you think is right for you, but tomorrow somebody else doing what they think is right for them without going through the system could result in your mother, who is not close to you, being a victim and being murdered or being harmed, etc. So I think it's time we these incidences once in a while they become one too many, and it's quite worrisome, and we need to take a look at that. So it's sad. I'm struggling to put myself together on the issue, because I think it's not a good marker. It tells us that a lot is amiss, and we need to try to fix that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, thank you very much. So we're hoping that this issue is taken up. We're looking to the President of Ghana to speak to it in Parliament today. We're asking that the Ghana Armed Forces withdraw their press release, apologize to Ghanaians, and the Ghana Police, together with the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, take action, that the Ghana Armed Forces should understand that they cannot act with impunity. We are subject to the rule of law and subject to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Brigadier General Agriquashi should not be issuing such press releases for and on behalf of the Ghana Armed Forces. This is a law-abiding country. Our resources and our tax is used for the Ghana Armed Forces, and they have a clear mandate to protect us from external aggression. The resources and the training that the Ghana Armed Forces has does not permit them to commit the dastardly acts that they committed yesterday, and then to rub salt in our wounds by coming up with this irresponsible press release, which seeks to justify the actions that the armed forces took, and which does not even seek to apologize for the innocent persons who were caught up in this unlawful, supposedly intelligence-led operation. We will not accept such conduct from a public institution, especially a security public institution, the Ghana Armed Forces. Ghanaians will not accept this 66 years after we secured independence. Brigadier General Agrikwashe, withdraw your press release. Ghana Armed Forces, apologize and take action and act more responsibly next time.
Oh, no, it's fired up. I'm told, I'm reading also that the Minister of Defense, the Deputy Minister of Defense says categorically that the government will not offer any apology, which is a pity really, because this is not the time to be pulling rank or exerting a certain kind of power and ego, really. These are people's children who have been hurt and have been harmed, and we must therefore show compassion and deal with the issue for what it is, and not make it I am right, you are wrong kind of issue. I think that apology for the behavior of the military is required and must be rendered. We will take a break on this note and come back with some more. Holy Child is 70 years old. They are very young.
Very young. I mean, very young, if you ask me.
And we are going to host some of them on the show coming up next.
Oh, we're going to host them?
Yes, we are.
Bridget, that would be very interesting.
Indeed. I like Holy Child. My sister went there.
Yes, Marley went there.
Yes.
That's interesting. That will be
Back.
reuniting.